Hello world, hello Australia, it's Jamie here, the crypto koala. Now today guys, I've got Robert. Now Robert is the CEO and founder of AVXChange. Mate, great to have you on the day, Robert.
Thank you, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now I understand that you're based in the Philippines at the moment, but you're originally from the US. So mate, tell us a bit about yourself, and if you can, tell us a bit about your team.
Sure, Jamie. Yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen, and we are having our development done here in the Philippines. We're in the process of still deciding where our business entity will be incorporated. But for now, we're doing development here in the Philippines. As I stated, I'm a U.S. citizen. My partner in this venture is a U.S. citizen, Mr. Ryan Strasser. And our team is comprised of mostly Filipinos here in the Philippines, many computer scientists and developers, designers, enthusiasts. Mostly we have about 8 members of our team who work with us full time. And then we sometimes seek outside help at the moment when needed. But for the most part, we're doing most things internally at this point.
Great stuff. So I'm guessing the Philippines is a good place to have a base to run your project because of the costings and because you're they're more friendlier to you guys for development wise. The whole government's more friendlier to your project.
That's true. Actually, the government has come out recently quite in favor of fintech in general. They're starting an initiative to have their own to have fintech be a part of their special economic zones up in Luzon Island, the north part of it. I think they call it the Cagayan Special Economic Zone, if I'm correct. And yeah, we don't particularly deal with that aspect right now because we aren't necessarily doing anything other than developing here. But we have found that the Philippines does offer a lot of enthusiastic and talented people to work with in this industry, so we are appreciating that.
Yeah, it's great to hear. So, originally being from the US, how do you find with them for innovation? Taking the factors that you've gone from the US, instead of being based in the US, you've gone over to the Philippines. Now, recently with the comments from Donald Trump and even Steve Mnuchin, that sort of language and that sort of narrative on Bitcoin and Libra is that they're not really pro innovation. And I'd just like to have your thoughts on that, Robert.
Well, first of all, I'm not actually sure of what the Treasury Secretary or Mr. Trump have said in regards to cryptocurrency recently in specific, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least if power structures that exist today are threatened by cryptocurrency. They run fiat currencies that are very, I want to say this politically correctly, as far as dubious, as far as the value and where it comes from. The supply, quantity, and all of that is certainly questionable. So when someone comes up with a cryptographic currency that's fixed in the supply and where all transactions are agreed upon and transparent, mutable, they should be threatened, quite honestly. They are going to have to step up their game. What I mean by they, I mean power structures and current finance systems really they should look at what's happening with cryptocurrencies and instead of really looking at it as a threat, although it may be if they don't change the way they're doing things, they may be able to then instead look at it as a way to learn or improve what they're doing.
I think the US would be wise for them to look at innovation instead of kicking it to the curb and seeing it as an actual threat. Seeing it as a way to improve their current monetary system, a way to maybe, something better than the current USD instead of endlessly printing money. I think recently it's a US Congressman, Patrick McHenry. He was real pro for innovation, and he made a really good speech recently about how the US government, instead of really trying to kick to the curb, actually give it a chance, provided some framework in place and being pro-regulation, and actually, instead of trying to keep it in a cage, actually trying to, you know, to fan innovation in the US.
And I did want to point out too that it's not just the U.S. who could learn from crypto, right? It's any developed country who's running a fiat monetary system. There's an opportunity for any country to set the example and maybe switch over to some kind of cryptographic-based currency, and then maybe the rest of the world would follow. And I also do want to point out that, as you well know, probably, and most people, or maybe they don't, the U.S. was good in their stance when it came like the internet, not regulating the internet for quite some time to give it the chance to grow and allow for innovation. So I think there's some history that the U.S. can look back on and possibly, and so far, you know, so good, they haven't really cracked down on Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. They've come out with some statements, but at the end of the day, they are stepping back and kind of letting it mature. So to their credit, this has all been, you know, allowed, I guess. That's kind of a funny word to use, but to their credit, this has been it's been able to go on. I don't want to use the word allowed because that maybe implies a little too much power, but it's there.
Yeah. Some of the language that they've raised, like, you know, coming from Steve Mnuchin and Donald Trump administration around it's for illicit activities is terrorism, and you really compare that, you really compare that to the US dollar, and I've seen some really good statistics on that around, you know, money laundering with the banks, how much, you know, the banks have been fined for laundering money using the USD. Something crazy like 3.7% of GDP, of the global GDP is laundered money, and then 2/3 of that is the US dollar. So they really, you know, trying to use that narrative, but, you know, the US dollar is pretty prolific for illicit activities.
Yeah, history has a different little story than what they're saying. I mean, I didn't know those were the comments you were referring to. I mean, I think if you just, in recent history, maybe 3 years back, you look back to the Panama Papers, you might have record of a lot of illicit activity being done with U.S. dollars, and it would be interesting even then to look at how many of those Panama accounts were denominated in cryptocurrencies. And I saw, you know, that stuff is kind of laughable when you hear it, but maybe that's just their job, you know, to put out opinions that back their power structure. So, I mean, we have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Oh, for definite, for sure. Robert, what gave you the inspiration to build AVXChange? You know, what was the sort of the light bulb moment, or what did you notice in the industry that was lacking?
Well, I need to go back a few years, maybe about 10 or 11 years, actually. AVXChange, I originally had conceptualized back in around 2007 and 2008, when there was actually, you know, audio sharing was quite prolific back then via peer-to-peer. And but what wasn't happening a lot was that traditional retail options for video online they didn't really exist. Netflix, I believe, had just like announced that they would start streaming services. Around that time, Netflix was still doing DVD by mail in the US. I mean, that's kind of what was their first business model, is people would go online and click on some DVDs. They would be mailed through postal services. But at the time, though, you could still go online, and using various peer-to-peer technologies, you could enjoy digital media. So what's been the case for most of the last, you know, the digital era at least, is that consumers and peer-to-peer networks have led the way, and traditional business has lagged. Typically, I think either from not understanding the digital marketplace or what the digital marketplace was. And I think history has shown that media businesses have traditionally been afraid of new mediums and technologies because of fear of copying and copyright violations or whatever. So, but I think this kind of was a bad thing, and it has been a bad, I mean, I don't know. Let's just talk about the digital era. basically there was a vacuum where people wanted videos and audios online, and it wasn't being filled by the marketplace. So people took over and created these peer-to-peer apps. Not that peer-to-peer apps haven't been around for quite a long time, but they really started getting prolific in the early 2000s when, you know, we were way ahead of industry when it came to this thing. So this idea that I had conceptualized back in 2000 was mostly about incentivizing people to, one, purchase and reward content creators, and then in the process become incentivized to do so by being allowed to then share that content and earn from the sharing of the content. So that was the basic concept. Basically, if you come onto the platform, you need to purchase content, and once purchased, you can then share the content. That the content would be identified. IP owners would then be able to verify how many times their content has been shared or downloaded, and be able to then collect what is owed to them based on this immutable record. So that was the concept. It was, again, it was inspired, to answer your question more specifically, it was inspired by the vacuum at the time and the fact that peer-to-peer networks had a problem, and still have a problem if you look at torrents, in keeping people online. Many times you can find what you need. You can find, in case of like BitTorrent, you can find a tracker for a particular file that you want. BitTorrent has gotten pretty, the ecosystem for BitTorrent is quite filled out, and you can get most of anything you want using BitTorrent. The problem is if your stuff is really eclectic, or if it's aged, a lot of times the original people who seeded the file, or even anybody, there's nobody online with the complete file. So many times, I don't know if you've ever used BitTorrent, you may get to the point where you have 99% of the file, and maybe there's 20 other people with 99% of the file, but nobody has the whole file. And it's a little frustrating if you want to enjoy a particular piece of art. Not to mention the fact that with all those peer-to-peer options, you aren't able to necessarily give to the content creators. So that is a problem.
So I guess the current at the moment, going back all the way to the very beginning, you had like Napster. And I think of going back at the end of the 90s, where that was the first peer-to-peer for music files.
Well, I don't know if Napster was the first. Napster definitely was. It was the first in many people's world. It was
the known one.
Yeah, really. I think prior to that, I don't really. I was using a variety of services prior to Napster, and even during the time of Napster, I never really used Napster. One of the apps I was using prior to Napster was Nutella, I think, which was designed by Justin Farkle and some other gentleman when they were with Nullsoft or something like that. Whatever. And prior to that, even there's IRC and a lot of different technologies. I mean, people have been sharing files since computers were invented, I think, and personal computers were invented. So, I mean, I could take it way back to the days of the Commodore 64 and then trading floppy disks with my friends. So, I'm not saying that this is acceptable, or actually, I mean, it was for us because we were just trying things. I would go to the store and I would buy software too, and a lot of times peer-to-peer was just a way. It was just a way for us to sample things, to try something, listen to it, see if we like it. It was kind of like a new form of radio for us, advertising, so to speak. I know that we could just talk about the ethics and morals of peer-to-peer for a long time, so I'm going to just kind of close that right now. Or, I
mean, like back then, or just from that sort of building on that, is that you had a massive consumer demand, but the intellectual property, that's why Napster got closed down, is because it infringed on, and it started being taken to court basically because of intellectual property, and that sort of from there evolved into like just the music side of things like Pandora, and then now look to Spotify. So it seems like now the content creators are getting rewarded. So I'm just trying to make a comparison to you guys. Are you sort of being a peer-to-peer platform, and you are now that evolved, you're now that sort of platform where you think of the content creators, that there's no infringements there?
Well, I don't know whether there's infringement or not, to be honest. We will have to get into the specifics of how we see our network. And I think the pendulum has definitely swung in favor of IP owners. Whether IP owners are actually content creators or not is another thing. I mean, often they are, and I think most of the time maybe they're not. But that's a whole nother debate, and another, not even a debate, it could be a discussion topic that could go on for days. I think whether or not subscription services actually do fairly compensate content creators or even IP owners at this point in time is another debatable subject. Okay. I mean, you can, there's recent articles, I mean, opinions by some artists, maybe Taylor Swift, Tom York, Pharrell. They may not be getting their fair share of royalties from subscription services either. So it's a model, and it certainly is giving revenue to content creators in the digital realm. So at least they have that way of going to market, and that's better than nothing. And so that said, it's a very positive thing.
And that's something I did see on Twitter. You guys posted the other day with Taylor Swift with Spotify, if I got that right, where she's sort of not happy with what she's getting, like the percentage of what she's getting the revenue wise, so all the royalties. So I'm guessing it's providing an alternative to big content creators where you guys can provide that, better alternative.
Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, we definitely want to provide an alternative. I'd like to think we're better, and for a number of reasons. But at the end of the day, I think the consumer should decide for themselves what's better. Some people may like a subscription model, like an all-you-can-eat buffet or something, and other people may like an a la carte menu where they can pick and choose what they want. And at the end of the day, I think that consumers should have the option to be able to pick and choose what they want rather than go to an all-you-can-eat buffet. And right now, it seems like the digital options for consumers still aren't that rounded out. It seems like we're moving really much in the direction of all-you-can-eat buffets, so to speak, with these subscription models, and leaving a lot of room in the market for, as I would say, an a la carte menu, where you can pick and choose the media you want to enjoy and only pay for that versus everything on the menu. And I think in that way, too, there's more of an accurate accounting for what consumers want. And I think you're able to then also reward the content creator in a more, I think, fair and transparent way as well.
So if I got this right, would you view your platform as a more selective? Or would you,
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So say for instance, like, I'm going to say it, like a big one, like with like HB, with Game of Thrones, for example. Could that be something that would be on your platform? Something as big as that?
Well, I don't want to name any specific content, but I want to tell you this, that from the beginning, this was conceptualized as a platform that would have anything and everything. So the way I see it, too, is that there's a tremendous, even today, still a tremendous amount of uncompensated peer-to-peer file sharing going on. And it's our belief, and I believe there's some research that backs this up, that the reason it's still so prolific, and even there's a trend back towards P2P, is because the market is so traditional, or I don't really want to call it traditional, but the options that people have right now in the authorized landscape, or where they can give to content creators, the options are not so good. Like if I wanted to enjoy Game of Thrones, I might have to have, I'm not sure exactly the US marketplace at this moment, but I may have to have a membership with HBO, or I might have to go online and get it, maybe wait till the season's done and buy a DVD off Amazon or a Blu-ray off Amazon. But if I want to watch something from Hulu, I have to have a Hulu subscription. And if I want something by Netflix or something that Netflix has licensed, I have to have a Netflix subscription. So it's getting to the point where if you really want to enjoy a little of this, a little of that, a little of this, you still have to sign up for all these different services. And that may not be what consumers want to do. You know, just to enjoy 3 different shows, you have to have 3 different subscriptions. I mean, that doesn't seem like it's catering to consumers' needs at all. So to go back to the idea is one of the reasons we feel that people use uncompensated peer-to-peer networks is because they actually provide a tremendous amount of choice for the user. I would like to call them consumers, but yeah, they are consuming the media. Are they compensating IP owners or not? Right now, they aren't. And that's because the mechanisms aren't there for peer-to-peer users to compensate IP owners. I'd like to actually use the word content creators because I do see a distinction between IP owners and content creators, and we could talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, right now, in the peer-to-peer realm, there isn't really a way to reward content creators other than like to maybe, I can't really think of a way, but something that peer-to-peer users still enjoy that people who want to use traditional marketplace options don't enjoy is peer-to-peer users can still go online and select from any content that they want. They also can get content that's flexible. It's DRM free, digital rights management free. They can use it on this device, that device, and whatnot. They can take it with them and watch them. It doesn't expire. They enjoy a lot of benefits that people who pay for content don't enjoy. So I think the marketplace still has a long ways to go in terms of catering to consumers. And I just have to believe in, you know, as a red-blooded American capitalist, that businesses will win when they cater to consumers. When they treat the consumer interest primary, they're going to win. And what consumers want, what they always want, is they want choice and they want flexibility. And we want to give that to them, meaning we want to offer a one-stop shop for them, because it's frustrating to think, oh, what network do I have to go to find that? We want to be the one place you go to get all of your entertainment and media needs. So with that in mind, rather than limit what people share on our network, our goal was to identify what it is and try and track it and install a mechanism for people to purchase it and reward, or at least put the money in an account for the content creators, so that if they have a problem with what we're doing, we can at least say, hey, you know, before you get your feathers in a bunch or get too upset about this, realize that we have an immutable, transparent record of all the transactions, so you can know exactly how many people have downloaded your work, and we've set aside this much money. And at this point, we're saying 60% from every transaction, we're going to set aside for the content creator. And we believe that matches industry, like if iTunes, for example, we believe that they give 60% to content creators or IP owners. And so that's what we're saying, is we're going to give 60% to the content creator. So rather than limit what users can share, we're instead going to identify it, track it, and keep the money in an account for the content creators.
Sure, and that's what I see now is the major difference between yourself, say iTunes, Netflix, YouTube, is that the blockchain element, where you've got that ledger where you can actively see if you're a content producer and you're an upcoming artist and you want to get your name out there and you want to see exactly how much you've earned, you want to see what's there. And with the platforms that exist at the moment, is that doesn't exist. So even someone who is the other way around, and you've got actually a consumer that wants to purchase that content, like there is no trusted, secure way of really seeing that and seeing, you know, the fair distribution of say your tokens, or the fair distribution of the revenue. So just moving on to the actual incentive, the actual revenue which the consumers or the content creators get, what incentive is there to actually use the token?
Well, okay. So the token is actually the only way to purchase content on our network. The token is used in a variety of ways. The token is used by we're going to have a staking system for the network nodes. They can use tokens to further ensure that they're a trusted node. Basically, they put forth a certain amount of tokens to say that, look, I'm giving a fair and accurate version of the events, and if I'm not, then I'm willing to risk these tokens. If I act as a bad actor, then I'm risking forfeiting these tokens. So we're allowing for tokens to be staked on our network by network nodes. Tokens are what you earn when you share. As I mentioned earlier, 35% of the purchase price of a file goes to the people who shared the file. And the way that works is, like, if I'm the only source of a file and you come online and you're the second person who wants to, well, let's say I'm the one to share a file, then I would be the first. And you come online and you want to buy that file, then obviously I'm the one who's going to send you 100% of that file, which means I'm going to earn 35% of the sales price, right? So the next time someone comes online and they want to buy it, then there's going to be two sources, me and you. And if all things are considered equal, like we have the same amount of bandwidth or whatnot, let's say we split that. So you and I then each earn 17.5% of the total 35 of the 35. You and I own 17. You and I each earn 17.5% of the total purchase price, or 50-50 of the 35% of the total purchase price. So because we are the two sources for the file, and so on and so on. We're incentivized to keep our files on the network because we can actually earn. If you're the first person to share a file, or one of the first people to buy a file, then if all things are considered equal, you'd make your money back that you spent on the file after about 10 or 11 purchases. So it's kind of a cool thing that incentivizes people not just to purchase, but to be one of the first to purchase and to get in. Like, imagine if there was a super popular album or track or television show, and you're one of the first people to go online and share it or purchase it, there's a chance that you can make your money back and then a few times over. By the same token, if you're one of the last people to enjoy or purchase one of these content, maybe you're not going to make your money back, but at the end of the day, you're still giving back to the content creator.
Sure. And
maybe a chance to make your money back down the road. Because, I mean, who's to say that maybe some of the people who purchased it early on are still sharing it? What does, basically that incentive to buy is also an incentive to keep your file on the network so that it's there and available for future purchasers to buy.
And I guess to share as well.
Yeah, basically when you buy, you share. So you can buy and not share if you want, but I mean, why not share? Why not offer your bandwidth and storage to the network and to the artists and IP owners to leverage so that you can then also earn from your role in the supply chain? So why not? Yeah,
definitely. So I noticed your actual token is ERC20 token. So are you guys actually building Ethereum, or are you building your own? How's that working, Rob?
That's a good question. So we have a token right now that's ERC20, but we are building our own platform, and we will have a native token. We did write an article on our website about kind of what the whole deal was, but in a nutshell, we made an ERC20 token in case we want to use that to raise money to help further along our project. I mean, more money, in terms of software development, marketing of the project, more money never hurts. At this point, we're internally financed, but we're at a point where, maybe having more money would be a good thing. It's not even a maybe, actually. Money in terms of investment capital is usually a good thing. It can hasten development. It moves it along faster, and there's more money to advertise and build the user base. Right now, given that we're internally financed, we have our team size of 8, and we're going to have to rely on word of mouth and ultimately building a product that people want to use to build our platform, because we don't have a lot of money set aside for marketing or anything like that. We're basically dedicated to building a product that we hope and we really believe is the best product option right now for consumers, at least, and even content creators. Whether or not they're going to understand that and accept that right away is definitely to be seen. But I think consumers should appreciate at least what we're offering. I mean, I guess not all consumers. Maybe a lot of consumers like the all-you-can-eat buffets, but consumers who want more choice and flexibility certainly will appreciate our option.
Yeah, I guess the most important thing is with your platform, and how I see it, is that it's user friendly, and really not a lot of people don't want to know the back end. They don't want to know the blockchain, so they don't want to know how the file sharing structure works and the IPO, or they basically just want to go on there and view the content and get rewarded. I think if that is transparent and easy, like just from the front end of it, I think really that's all that matters. And if you've got a product there which focuses on that, and you're looking at basically that's what your core program is, what's going to help you grow and potentially raise more revenue in the future, then that's something that ultimately is going to sell yourselves. So it's the actual platform, and it's being a user-friendly and robust platform, I guess. So
yeah, I concur with you. And sometimes we tend to geek out a little bit, and we're like peer-to-peer, blockchain, distributed ledger technology, cryptocurrency. We emphasize that our business model, but at the end of the day, we want to be a video and audio platform where artists can come and share their work, and consumers can come and get really a good service. So yeah, and that's what we're building. We're building a front end that's really meant for consumers of audio and video to come in and enjoy. It's very user-friendly, very visual. But at the same time, if you dig in, like you can see the nerd part of you can enjoy it as well. You can see the transaction history. You can see where you're earning. You can see the file downloads. There's the nerd aspect should be satisfied as well as the consumer, and mostly the consumer.
Sure, and I guess that advanced features is something that you can't find anywhere else. Like with traditional video sharing audio platforms, as we mentioned earlier on, that advanced features. So before we go off and we go into the product side of things, I want to try and talk a little bit about the actual blockchain, the AVXChange blockchain. So you mentioned you're not building on Ethereum, so you're better build your own, and potentially you're going to have a token swap in the future. Just give us some idea of how secure your platform is. So is there any single points of failure? Like, are you quite centralized, or are you got many nodes at the moment, or are you aiming to have like multiple nodes in the future, or is that where it ties in with every single user of the platform effectively becomes a node user? Just so I can get an understanding of how distributed you are and how secure you guys are.
Okay. Well, the goal is to be fully distributed. At the moment, we're, again, internal. So we just have a lab. We're running on a local area network right now. And we're getting very close to a public rollout of our beta. We're not quite there. We talked about wanting to have this ready by the end of July. We look like we're on pace. Maybe we'll start rolling it out in July, maybe early August. So we're doing pretty good about staying on pace as far as in terms of development. So yeah, our goal is to be insecure. Once we release this platform to the wild, we'd like to be able to say, like a mother giving birth to a baby, and raising the child and then putting the child out in the world, the child is going to be autonomous and be able to go out and live its life, and hopefully the child's 18-year-old and we're no longer responsible. I kind of laugh at that to some degree, but I think what we're doing is going to be controversial in some circles, especially when it comes to IP and copyright, because maybe some people want to enjoy exclusivity And I don't know that we're going to facilitate that. Basically, we don't want to police what people are doing. But let's get back to the technology and centralization. So we're running a couple, we have what we're terming like a layered approach to this decentralization. The client app that we are going to have people download, we're calling like the layer 1. It's the basic layer. This is the layer where the user is interfaces with our network. And this is also where files are stored. The files are not stored on our network. The files are stored on the user's computers. So we don't actually have any content on our network. What we keep on our network is the blockchain for the cryptocurrency and the transaction. And we also have another distributed ledger, and that's for the assets. This is where we store information about the assets that are available on the network. And but the blockchain and the asset chain are not kept on the layer 1. The blockchain and the asset chain are kept on what we're calling the second layer of our network. And this is basically where the ledgers are kept. This is where or if you think about it as a database, this is where the database is kept, and this is as distributed as the layer 1. You can be a part of our platform without ever purchasing any media. You can install a layer 2 application on your computer, and you can earn by supporting the databases or the ledgers, if you will. And you won't be hosting any files. You'll just be hosting the asset data, the metadata associated with that, and the blockchain. So in that regards, that we should be fully distributed. The layer 2s will be, again, like those who understand blockchain and distributed ledger technology may know this, but I'll just say that the layer 2s, the ledger is repeated with all the layer 2s. And so they all have the same copy. They reach consensus on events, and they share the same copy of the ledgers. And we have also a way that consensus is reached, and we have a way of then redistributing each new block. And so in that regards, we will be fully distributed. At first, when we launch it, it's not going to be as distributed as we like, of course, because it's just going to be a few computers. But it should only be a matter of time until other people come on board on both layers, the L2 and the L1, to reach that layer of distribution. And hopefully that'll all be achieved as we publicly roll out the beta. So hopefully by the time we actually do network launch and sometime late Q4 of this year, we'll have a fairly robust and well-distributed network.
So you've got that reward structure for the front end layer 1, which that's the 35%. And then you've got that reward structure for the back end layer 2, which is going to assist in making you more decentralized, making you guys more secure.
That's correct. Yeah, and then that's where the 5% goes. So the 5% from every transaction gets split up among the layer 2 nodes to reward them for maintaining the ledger. So you can still participate in our network and earn at the same time.
Great stuff. So you mentioned back in the interview earlier on that you're self-funded, but do you feel like you're going to release your public platform, and you guys have been working on your beta, and you aim to release your main fully functional platform January next year. So
yeah, or late or pre-Christmas, but we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's ambitious.
So do you still think you've got the funds? Do you think you'll be able to, be able to carry yourselves through to that period of time?
Well, I mean, I think we're going to do it. It's just like how comfortable and how quickly will it get done. Yeah, we will be able to get to where we need to get with where we're at now. But we're hoping actually to get some private financing at some point in time, which will allow us to increase our development team so we can, because we actually have a far richer experience plan than just the basic things that I have described already. But to get there, to develop the full extent of what we want to develop in terms of, like, we want a community aspect to be built into our app as well. And also to get the word out as far as advertising and things like that, so that the network becomes a place where more people use. And of course, any kind of peer-to-peer based network is going to benefit from more users and wider popularity.
So I'm guessing at the moment you're looking at building up that community, you're building up the awareness of your platform leading up to the release, and then when the release, you're going to try and onboard both the users and the the IP and content creators.
Yeah. Onboarding content creators. That's an interesting thing. Because as I mentioned prior, that's not really going to be our focus necessarily, as we're not set to like tell people what they can share and what they can't share. The fact of the matter is that uncompensated peer-to-peer file downloading is going on right now. So going back to one of the impetuses for why we created our platform in the first place is we want to actually convert people who currently use uncompensated peer-to-peer options, because of all the benefits that we talked about, choice and flexibility. We want to convert those users into using our platform. So we don't believe that users are going to stop using current uncompensated peer-to-peer options unless they have a similar type of user experience in a way that they can reward content creators. So without giving users who use uncompensated peer-to-peer options right now, who enjoy an incredible choice when it comes to what they want to download in one place and incredible flexibility and the lack of DRM, without giving consumers or users that, we don't believe we can move people over from the uncompensated world to the compensated world. So we're taking a novel approach, and we're saying that we're going to allow users to share whatever they want. Our focus is on making sure that content creators get rewarded. Because I think at the end of the day, all discussions on the merits of IP law and copyright law, most people can agree on the fact that IP owners or content creators should get rewarded when their work is downloaded. So rather than get into whether or not permission was given to share on our network, we're just going to allow for people to share whatever they want. I kind of think about it in terms of like people who remember the old physical world of media. I mean, you may be old enough. I certainly am. I lived in a day when people had CDs and vinyl records. And once the musicians or the content creators sold us those works, or even Laserdisc and DVDs, they were kind of ours to do with as we pleased. When I was done with my CD or my DVD, I could give it to my friend, just give it to him and he could enjoy it. Or if I wanted, I could sell it to a used CD shop for whatever price I wanted to sell it to them for, and then they could put it on their shelves and then in turn sell it to whomever they wanted. Now, the interesting thing about this approach is that that same CD could have changed hands many, many times, and the only people profiting off it would have been the used record store, perhaps. Or, I mean, I don't think anybody, maybe people who bought vinyl back in the day, I don't know if you can call the appreciation of vinyl over time the fact that it becomes a collectible item. I don't know if you can call that
commodity. Yeah.
What's that?
It's sort of like a commodity. It's like a collectibles now, the vinyl.
Yeah, I don't know if you can call that a profit or not, but every time that media, that physical media changed hands, I think it's important to note that the content creator wasn't earning. So they sold me a CD, I sold it to the record store, they sold it, and they went back and forth at the used CD shop, but the content creator never earned for the times that switched ownership. So what we're doing, in a sense, is we're trying to create that used record store. But instead of just the file changing hands every time the file changes hands, the content creator gets rewarded on our network. So that's our kind of approach to it. We want to actually make a fair kind of system where everybody is rewarded for what they contribute. And look, if it comes down to this being sorted out in court, then maybe it'll get sorted out in court. But we believe we have the right intent. We believe that our goal is righteous. So
the structure, the architecture of the platform, that your intent is to make a fair reward content creators. And that's what your aim and goal is ultimately.
Yeah, and to create the best, yes,
and the best experience for the users.
Yeah, because we believe in by creating the best experience for the consumer and the user, the content creator and the IP owners will win. So I think, I don't know why they lost that lesson in Capitalism 101, but like, I think like if you look at some of the most dominant companies now, and I think Amazon comes to mind, they've always had a focus on user experience, one-click purchase, incredible customer service, those kind of things, you know, giving the consumer what they want and need. It really leads to sales. And I think what artists and content creators will come to realize is that we're getting it right. So we'll see what history, we'll have to wait 10 years to see whether I'm correct or not, but we'll see.
Sure, Robert. Well, guys, what I'll do, I'll put the links down below if you want to check out AVXChange, and also Robert's on Twitter. So I'll put down his Twitter link if you want to check them out. Just a quick disclaimer, like I say in all my videos, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to go and buy their tokens. Do your own due diligence and check out the project for yourselves. Thank you so much for your time, Robert. It's been a pleasure talking to you, mate.
Absolutely, Jamie, a pleasure. Thanks for the time and the interview. I appreciate it.
Okay, see you later, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye.